We're going to move on to the official speaker. He's a guy called Lee Skripchuk. He's a human interface person. Yep. That's a longer title, but it was buried in my notes. But he does some advanced work with tying up, I think all the stuff we've been talking about this morning to real life use cases in a very interesting area that we haven't talked so much about this morning, but we spend most of our events at MIT talking about autonomy and really not about cars, but about autonomy. So I'm going to give the word to you. Jaguar is Land Rover is a member company of ILP, and they're doing lots of interesting work, and I hope that you can share some of that with us.
Absolutely. Okay, is there a clicker for the presentation? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Fantastic agenda this morning. Loved the slide from Peter on the BMW advert. Of course, it was interesting. He talked about the engineers talking to the marketing guys back in the 1970s. It was probably the case that the engineers were the marketing guys back then in an automotive company. I know that was certainly the case with us. Now we clearly you will know us for our vehicles, our premium automotive vehicles, and we try to innovate around technology for use on our products. So the research department that I'm based at, we spend a lot of money and time and resource on developing new technologies and new features, if you like, for integration into our vehicles. And we today clearly produce very expensive luxury vehicles, but in the future we've kind of set ourselves the target of being a lifestyle company, and so our tagline, if you like, our vision statement is around generating experiences that people love for life. And so, today it's cars, but tomorrow, who knows? And hopefully that will stimulate some thought from you guys about potential areas that maybe you could collaborate with us on in terms of what does future mobility look like in terms of the vehicles. We've got people looking at innovation at a lot of different aspects. I'm from the Research and Technology Department. We'll talk a little bit about what our process is here. But we also have a number of different activities around the world focused at different levels. So, for example, we have an incubator that's recently just started up here in London called InMotion, and they're looking at future mobility services as a platform. We have an incubator over in Portland, Oregon, looking at small startup companies and how we can help them develop. And we also have, I guess what you could call a fast-to-market platform for people who develop applications, and it's called In Control. And that allows us to get things from sort of idea to the market very quickly through mobile phone devices. And as has already been mentioned, we've got a number of engagements with MIT through the Media Lab, where we've been members for a number of years now, and also some projects we're doing with Age Lab. And we've got some experience at working with MIT startups like Autonomy. So a little bit about us. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, just our group in numbers, I guess you could say. We've got 285 people based mostly in the UK. We're organised around 21 which we call mega projects, but think of them as a portfolio of different project ideas. And we focus them around 5 strategic areas that we call smart, connected, clean, capable and desirable. And I'll go into those in a little bit more detail later on. We've kind of done this to try and get away from the traditional siloing of an automotive manufacturer. Many people who are familiar with automotive will be familiar with these kind of functions, if you like, and really to try and move away from that as an idea. We've moved to sort of the more strategic pillar idea. We typically work on things that are 4 years from production, so things that I'm working on today will come into being in sort of 2019, 2020, and we are the largest investor in research and development within the UK. Here's our strategic overview. Don't worry for those who can't read it. I'll go into it in a little bit more detail as we go through. But we tried to take, I guess, the lean approach, if you might call it that, where we tried to take sort of tactical research decisions based upon a long-term strategy. And this is kind of a big overview of what our strategy is about. So I've talked a little bit about the research themes, so smart, connected, capable, clean and desirable. And all of these have, I guess, technical aspects that you would typically relate back to a traditional vehicle, but we're trying to take kind of the next step forward and look at these from a different perspective. So, for example, smart intelligent covers a lot of systems associated with autonomy, but also how do the users interact with the vehicles in a more smart way, connected. How do we communicate with our cars, and how do we transfer information from them so that we can make use of all the big data ideas that has already been talked about earlier on today. Capability. One of our key USPs as a business is the capability of our cars. People associate Land Rovers in particular with being able to take them anywhere, and so that's a very key focus within JLR as a business. Clean. I don't think there's any OEM in the world today who's not conscious of the fact that they need to be more environmentally friendly, and so some really aggressive targets that we have to try and meet over the next few years about trying to reduce CO2 implications. And desirability, making people want our products through aesthetic appeal. And these break down into a number of different areas, as I mentioned already, and you can kind of see some of the key technical themes that we're working with inside each of these areas of focus. And obviously, if there are any links here between anyone in the audience, feel free to get in contact. As I mentioned before, we are structured around themes and mega project areas. So each one of those technical areas is grouped as a project grouping, and they're kind of laid out against the 5 areas. So the area that I'm specifically involved in, next generation, Ultimate HMI, focuses on the smart and connected theme, but we have a number of different areas looking at all sorts of different aspects of automotive, whether it be making the vehicles lighter and more efficient that way, or making the vehicles drive without a driver, to electrical architectures, removing the miles and miles of wires and connectors that we have on our cars to make them lighter, and just really getting into those areas in a lot of technical detail. I am based at Warwick University along with the majority of the research staff, but we have connections across the globe, primarily in the UK, but we have people in China. We've got a group of research people in India, and we have connections at MIT, and we have a visiting scientist over there at the moment. And that investment, I guess, into the West Midlands particularly is continuing. We are in the process of building a new building on campus at Warwick University, which will be known as the National Automotive Innovation Research Centre. It's going up at the moment, and they've just put that roof on. It looks fantastic. Wonderful structure. So just to touch a little bit on the key trends and drivers that's driving a little bit of our research into the automotive arena. The first one is urbanization. Obviously, the increasing amount of population living in cities is going to potentially have a big implication on how people travel, and that clearly is going to have an implication on us and how future ownership models might be delivered. Downsizing and electrification linked to CO2 issue, and how does that implicate how people will buy new vehicles? Clearly, Tesla have been very proactive in that space and are really showing the way, I think, in terms of how to market and sell electric vehicles. Always connected. We can make the cars better. We can make the services better if we can make the connectivity to them more reliable. And so we see that as being a key trend that's driving our research. There are new business models evolving, whether that be car share schemes, shared ownership, mobility on demand. This is all changing the way that people might own cars. So we might not sell to individuals in the future, we might sell to groups or carpools or whatever. And the race to autonomy, clearly one of the biggest technology push stories of the maybe the recent times. And I guess from our perspective, we don't see ourselves as being one of the leaders in this area. We'll be following them, but certainly it's a big story, and it's where a lot of investment is going from a lot of the large automotive companies. Globalized organizations, increased regulation. So certainly around the area of autonomy, there's a lot of unknowns, and so we are trying to anticipate that to some respect. I think a lot of people are, but also working with regulators to make sure that we're able to deliver on the elements that they regulate against. Shift in automotive consumption and environmental pressure. Clearly, the environment is important, and we are very important in that whole ecosystem. just to talk to you about a couple of examples of projects that we've worked on over the past few years. All of these are available as videos. I'm not going to play any of them because we'll be here forever if we do. But if you search on YouTube any of the headings, you should be able to see some of these. But the idea of intelligent HMI systems that help the driver to be able to see their environment without obstruction, and also communicate to them in a way that makes their behaviour more natural so that they can react accordingly. We've got a bunch of data scientists who are mining data on the vehicle real time and delivering features as a function of that. And also we've put a lot of investment in the UK into developing engines, and we've got a new engine plant that's been online the last 2 years. And also autonomy. I mentioned earlier about autonomy being important to us, but maybe not. We're not going to invest in the big bucks that some of the others are. But we are interested, obviously, where it helps strengthen our brand. So, for example, in off-road scenarios where vehicle capability is important, that's clearly one of our key USPs and something that we are working on in a lot of detail. And so here we mentioned about experiences customers love for life, and there's a lot of areas that we're sort of investing in the future, whether that be sort of digital transformation, a lot of which has been spoken about today, and obviously working within a lot of strategic partnerships with universities and other companies in order to help develop new ideas and advance the innovation capability within the company. I'm going to skip over the process because that's boring. But we do have a huge development team. I'm part of a smaller research team, and we feed our work into our development team to take it into mass production. Just touching a little bit on what we do. So we obviously develop new technologies, and we have a process to do that. But we're open to work with others who are also interested in doing that as much as we are. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. How's the afternoon for questions? Any immediate questions to Lee? Yes.
Hello, I'm from Switzerland. We are driving on the right side. How about standardization in the autonomous car?
Standardization of what?
Any kind of technical devices.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I don't know as it's hugely on the agenda at the moment, but certainly from a human-machine interface perspective, which I can talk about, I think it's very important. I think one of the things you realise when you start looking at autonomy from a human perspective is that when you take these tasks or the driving task away, say for example, the impact of a HMI is that it should increase rather than decrease. And so if the industry starts to develop their own technical solutions and technical HMIs for autonomy, as it were, then swapping between vehicles could become very confusing. So in my view, yes, we definitely need to standardise, especially around any area that involves sort of the handshake between the human and the car.
You can maybe take one more. All right, this is going to be a challenge. It'll be a reveal that I never played American football.
Good catch. Thank you, Ken. Question about the generational divide. Obviously, we talk a lot about the digital generation. Not many of them can afford some of your beautiful cars. How does aspects of demography affect your design decisions?
Good question. So, luckily for us, the global population is aging quite well. So, for us, people are getting older, and so there's lots of people with money at that age. But yeah, I mean, it's a very challenging aspect, and of course, what I think most OEMs will try to do is to try and segment their vehicles. So whilst you have a vehicle that's aimed at the older generation, you'll try and create something that's aimed at the younger generations too. We do spend a lot of time talking with customers, talking with people of different demographics, but I guess from our perspective, it's always been around the older customer, if you like, and so that's where our designs have always been targeted. It's funny because when you talk to the design departments, they might not think that's the case. You know, they always target younger people, but end up selling them to older people. So, you know, it's just one of those things. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting challenge. I think, again, bringing that back to HMI, obviously my area, one of the things that I find quite fascinating is how you make a car that's usable by somebody who's 18 versus somebody who's 85, and I find that challenge quite interesting.
You're going to do one quick one?
One more, yeah, go for it. You just want to throw that thing all the time, don't you?
I love it.
I'm one of your older customers.
Which product?
I have a Jaguar XF.
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, but one of the things, for example, I picked up at BMW is they are experimenting with this idea of usage instead of selling a car.
Yeah.
So I would love to actually use my XF in the week and then maybe in the weekend use a Range Rover. Is that something you guys are actively thinking about?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I think ownership models and usage models, they're changing all the time, aren't they? And going back to the experiences thing, that's the great thing about JLR cars, right? Is getting in them and driving them. So I can certainly see, in the future there being this idea maybe of carpools that we sell into, and then people can maybe pick and choose the car they want for a week or a weekend journey. It's great to get in a Land Rover Discovery if you're travelling up to the Lake District, but equally, it's good to drive around the local area in, say, an XF. So
I'm going to make an executive decision here. We're going to bring him on the panel, so that way we can all move on if he's game. Unless he's leaving.
Unfortunately, I've got to shoot to pick children up from school. So.
Oh no, the children from school.
Yeah, maybe I could.
All right. Well then, we can take.
But if there are any questions, I'm happy to stay for a bit longer.
How is the advances in manufacturing going to impact on design in the future? So digitization of manufacturing.
Okay, tough one for me to answer. Yeah, I guess. Certainly from building of cars perspective, I think there's a lot more use of robotics, trying to take humans out of that loop. I think on the design side, maybe we see more of a shift towards virtualization. So they're trying to do everything on a computer before they go and, press play to get all the tools made and get all the parts made. So there's definitely a left shift in that space. And we have now what they call virtual gateways in the development process, whereby the whole car is reviewed through a set of headsets or within a 3D cave, even to the point where they'll try and build the car with tools within the 3D environment. Just to be able to see, to be able to get away from those late errors or those issues that happen late on in the process that invariably cost a lot of money to put right. So that whole arena is really sort of going up in certainly in JLR, and I'm sure in other OEMs as well.
All right, Lee, I'm going to thank you.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.